All right, the infamous squat. How do you improve it? How do you get better at it? We're talking all those things in today's episode. So strap in and get ready for episode 154. Let's go.
I've always been that skinny guy.
Why can't I gain muscle mass?
What do I do in the gym?
They said I'd always be skinny.
This is your complete source for how to gain lean muscle and break out of your skinny body. From nutrition to getting the most out of your workouts and everything in between. We know just how frustrating gaining muscle mass can be, but don't worry, we've got you covered. You're listening to the Bones to Bulk podcast.
Hey, welcome to today's episode. My name is Brian Parody, and I will be your host today. And I've mentioned this a couple times before, and just wanted to say it again. Like, if you are really struggling with figuring out that solid foundation that you need in order to get your fitness on track and your health on track, check out my one-on-one training. You can go to bonestobulk.com and find out more. But basically, I walk alongside of you for 8 weeks. I create a custom meal plan, a custom workout plan that is customized to you, to your personal daily life, your schedule, what equipment you have available to you, what foods you like and dislike. I custom make all this stuff for you. I walk with you. We meet weekly over Zoom and we'll talk and work through the mental and the physical blocks that are keeping you held back. So if you're interested in finding out more about that, head on over to bonestobulk.com. It's right on the homepage. You can scroll down a little bit, my one-on-one online training, and find out some more information about that. With that being said, let's dive into today's content. So you want to up your squat game, or maybe you're having issues with your squat. Maybe you don't feel like it's going up fast enough, or you're having pain while doing squats. I get it. There can be a lot of different struggles when it comes to squatting. And first off, I just want you to know that you're not alone. It is pretty normal to struggle with boosting it up, to kind of figuring out what to do to change things up, or sometimes just to evaluate, are you doing everything right? So I want to start from the basics, and I'm going to work up to some tips and tricks to try to increase how much you're squatting. First off, your stance is everything. And while that may seem pretty straightforward, I want to go into it. So your feet should be about shoulder width apart, slightly more. Your toes should be pointed at a 45-degree angle to the sides, away from you, away from center. And you need a solid footing. Like, don't do this barefoot or with socks. I've seen people do that, believe it or not. Get some solid shoes on, some good support, and just get comfortable in that stance. Don't even put any weight on the bar. Just do some body squats and be comfortable with the stance that you have. The second thing is, I don't know where the whole thing of don't let your knees come past your toes came from, but that is not true. Your knees can go past your toes, and sometimes by keeping them from doing that natural line of movement they want to do, we end up hurting ourselves. So knees can go past the toes when you're going down. Second thing is, go all the way down. And I know this sounds like a no-brainer, but so often we're trying to squat so much weight that we can't go all the way down, or we know if we do, we're not coming back up. And so drop the weight. This isn't an ego thing. This isn't, I can squat this much. No, it's nothing like that. Drop the weight. Make sure that you are going deep on your squats because it's important. Now, another thing is your back. You want to make sure your back is straight throughout the movement, that your back is not bending. Your back shouldn't be moving at all. Like, your back should be solid. And if you need to, record yourself doing squats. Stick your phone on the side so you have a nice clear side view of your entire squat and see what you're doing. See what your squat looks like. Are you leaning forward? Are you leaning backwards? Are you keeping your back straight? We need to evaluate ourselves, and there's nothing wrong with that. You want to make sure that your heels stay on the floor the entire time. Sometimes when our heels come up, it can be a couple things. It can be a weak core, and so we're not really strong enough. We're lifting, again, too much weight than what we should be. Or sometimes it's we're leaning forward throughout the movement, and oftentimes that happens when we bend our back a little bit. And so as we're going down, we have this tendency to lean forward, and to compensate for that, those heels come off the floor. So that can be one issue going on with the heels coming off the floor. Now, knee pain is something else that is somewhat common on squats. And the reason for that is because as you go down in a squat, your glutes and your quads are doing the majority of the work. And what happens is, again, it comes back to lifting too much. If we have too much weight on the bar, our muscles can't keep up, basically. And so what happens is our knees take more of a load than they should. And as a result of that, they're put under too much strain. And that's why they get inflamed, they get swollen, and that's where the pain comes in. So So, so many problems can be fixed if we just lower the amount of weight. And I know this is about, well, how do I increase my squat? But you have to understand, in order to increase your squat, you have to get your form solid first. And that is number one priority. It's like building a house. You can't think about building the roof until you have the foundation laid. And so you've got to lay that foundation. You've got to have your form on point and solid. So that's why I'm stressing so much. Lower the weight, film yourself, and make sure your form is on point. Now, if you are confident that your form is on point, or you've been doing, once you've been doing it a while and have practiced your form and feel like it's in a good place, how do you increase it? Well, it's a good question. First off is doing different variations of squats. There's a lot of different squats you can do other than the typical, barbell squat that we tend to do. You can do goblet squats, which is where you hold a dumbbell in front of you, just one single dumbbell, and squat holding it. It changes the balance because the weight's in the front more so than the back. So it just helps kind of build strength in a way that a regular squat doesn't. Another thing is the front barbell squat. You basically do the same thing again, except you're holding the barbell in front of you rather than behind you on your shoulder blades. Again, it's going to just change that balance perspective up and strengthen you a little bit more. You can also do pause squats, which is where when you go down, when you're in that low position, you pause and you hold it for about 2 seconds. Then you rise back up. This is really helpful because, as the majority of the work is pushing up. It's easy for us to go down. The weight's doing that job for us, but to push back up. And so when we pause for a couple seconds, it makes it that much harder to push up, which is going to build more muscle, more explosive strength. You've probably seen box squats. It's where you put a box or a seat in the low position and then you squat down, you sit on it, you're not taking the load off fully. You're just kind of plopping your butt there and then you're coming up from that position. I honestly prefer the pause squats more than the seated squat because you can get out of form very easy since you're kind of sitting down, because you're going to have a tendency to deload when you do that. So, you can do them. I'm not saying you can't, but I prefer the pause squat rather than the box squat. All right. So we've got our form. We've got some variations we can do. And with the variations, change it up. Whether you're doing squats once or twice a week, do different ones from week to week. So maybe one week you do pause squats. Maybe one week you do front squats. Maybe one week you do regular squats. If you're doing it twice a week, always do regular squats once. And then on your second day of doing squats for that week, do a different variety. That would be my suggestion for that. In order to set up your routine, and this is where it really gets fun, I suggest doing, and I've talked about doing this kind of cycle before, it's a macro micro cycle where, in week 1, you're doing a higher rep range, so around 15 reps. Week 2, you're doing around 11 reps. Week 3, you're doing around 8 reps. And in week 4, you're doing 5 reps. Now, each week, the goal is to increase the weight since your reps are going down. So the difference between week 1 and week 4 is going to be a lot different because you're going from 15 reps to 5 reps. So you should be able to push a lot more in week 4 than you were in week 1. Now, at the end of this 4 weeks, you start the cycle over and do it a whole nother time. And what you're going to find usually is when you start over, you're able to actually have a higher weight on the high reps than you were 4 weeks ago. It's crazy how fast you can build strength doing this cycle. So if you've not tried that out, I would definitely suggest giving it a go. And this doesn't just work for squats. This works for all exercises. So that is my suggestion for how to really, once your form and all the other things are in place, to really grow how much you're able to squat. All right, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. If this podcast, if you get anything out of it, then if you would do me one small favor, just take a second out of your day to leave us a review on iTunes, write a little comment at what you think, your honest opinion about the podcast, whether you love it, whether you hate it. I want to hear your feedback, but it does help with boosting the algorithm just so we can get the podcast in front of more people and spread the message that we're trying to share here through Bones to Bulk. I would really greatly appreciate it if you just took a moment to do that. It would mean the world to me. All right, with that being said, remember, no matter what you're going through, what walls you're facing, what goals you're trying to just crush and demolish, you can accomplish them. You've got this.